So I'm recording now. These are your slides. Yeah. So good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. We have our guest speaker tonight. I think most of you know Christina.
Quite a few people here, yeah.
Alumni from Seattle Central.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
So as Tani said, my name is Christina Petrie. I graduated from Seattle Central last August with a degree in web development. And what I wanted to do today is come to talk to you about how to land a job as a junior web developer and the lessons that I learned along the way. Just a couple of things before we start, just so I can get an idea. Who here is part of the web development program? Okay, and web design? Okay, great. Next question. How many of you would consider yourself having come into the program with some prior experience, maybe a degree in computer science, programming degree, maybe even programming since you were 12 and have already built a gazillion websites? Just one, two, couple here? So everyone else, would you sort of put yourself in the category of transitioning into a new career, a newbie? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, then you, for all of you who are newbies, I'm going to call you a newbie. You basically are in the same place that I was when I graduated from Seattle Central with little or no experience. Yeah, certainly. So before I begin, let me just point out a couple of things that you have to look forward to when you graduate as a web developer. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics projects a 27% growth in available web developer jobs in the next 8 years. Not bad. That top right-hand corner there, or left-hand corner, sorry, is Washington. That is dark green. That's good. It means that there is a lot of employment of web developers. According to Indeed.com, front-end web developer on average makes $99,000 a year in Seattle. This is for a back-end developer and for a full-stack developer. Not bad. According to Coding Dojo, web development is one of the fastest growing and most in-demand occupations to date. And with no sign that this trend will halt anytime soon, there's no better time for a new opportunity to get into the field. So basically, if you are sitting in this classroom, you're in a really good place. There are a lot of jobs out there, a lot of jobs in Washington. They pay well, and it's a growing field. So August 2015, I was sitting in this classroom, getting ready to graduate, and a little nervous. I had a few things stacked against me. First of all, it was a career transition for me. Second of all, my resume had some gaps where I'd taken some time off to be a stay-at-home mom. Also, I'm a female and I was over 40. But I wasn't going to let that deter me. I was feeling pretty good about the job market, there being a lot of jobs out there, and optimistic about getting a job when I graduated. And then someone, sort of like myself, came to our Web 205 class and talked to us, and she burst that bubble. She basically said the reality is that it's going to be one of the toughest, most frustrating times you're going to get for you. So the problem is that nobody wants to hire the newbie, right? Everyone wants someone with experience. Everyone wants someone with a resume that's got 3 to 5 years of experience. And, you know, after a couple of years, you're going to get, recruiters are going to start calling on you, knocking on your door. But that doesn't help you in the short term. In the short term, you're caught in this vicious circle. So the vicious circle is that nobody wants to hire somebody without experience, but then how are you going to get the experience if nobody wants to hire you? So I get it. I mean, I get that nobody wants to hire someone with a lack of experience, but there are some things that you can do to help make that transition out to the workforce easier And these are lessons that I've learned the hard way or things that I've picked up along the way in my journey. And hopefully they will help you as you go out to the workforce after you've graduated. So the first thing I want to talk about is lesson number 1 is be prepared. So before you even begin to submit your resume out to different jobs, make sure that you're prepared. Doing so will greatly increase the odds of getting that job. So put the effort in beforehand to present yourself in the best possible way to a prospective employer, create a good impression, come across as professional. So some of the things that I would recommend that you do is figure out what is your perfect job. Have a portfolio, a LinkedIn profile, GitHub. Make sure you have an elevator pitch. Work with the staffing agencies and make sure that your resume is ready. Let's take a look at each of those. So obviously your goal is to land the perfect job. And I'm surprised at how many people out there don't sit down and actually figure out what that perfect job looks like before they go out. So how are you ever going to find the perfect job if you don't know what that job looks like? So you have to start asking yourself some questions. Do I want to work front end, back end? Do I want to be an app developer? Do I want to work full-time, part-time, temp, permanent? How far am I willing to commute? What kind of salary do I want? Do I want to work alone? Do I want to work with people? So it's really helpful to sit down and start figuring this out before you even go on the job hunt. The next step is decide what's important. What are your must-haves? Your must-have maybe are health benefits and a short commute. And your what is negotiable maybe is you would like to be able to work from home if that's possible, but that's negotiable. The truth of the matter is that you probably will not find your perfect job. But if you don't ever take the time to sit down and figure out what that's going to look like, you'll get a lot closer if you do sit down and take the time to figure out what that looks like. I went on 3 or 4 interviews for jobs on the east side before I really sort of admitted to myself that commute was the deal breaker. The truth of the matter is I just really did not want to be commuting over to the east side unless it was for a short-term contract. And so as soon as I made that decision or figured that out, that greatly narrowed down my search and was really helpful in targeting my jobs. The next is building your portfolio. There is a lot of debate on this, use a theme or build your own portfolio. My recommendation is hand code your portfolio. Don't use a theme. So basically a theme is just a pre-made website. It's kind of like going into a restaurant and getting packaged mac and cheese. I mean, it's food, but you don't really want to pay for food if it's something that you can make yourself, right? So if you're going to be a web developer, then show them what you can do by developing your own portfolio and really take time on it. Make sure that it's good because your portfolio is one of the things that the potential employer is going to look at when they consider you. So it really needs to be a reflection of your skills and of yourself. And then based on your portfolio, they're going to be forming an opinion of you. So show your employers what you're capable of with your portfolio. When I graduated, I did not know Bootstrap, and so what I did is I built my portfolio using Bootstrap as my framework. And so it was sort of a win-win situation. I built my own portfolio, I learned a new skill, and I was able to put it on my resume. So you can always use it as a learning experience. Next, your LinkedIn profile. Make sure it looks professional. A lot of people, when they want to find out more about you professionally, they're going to go to your LinkedIn profile. And so this could make the difference between a potential employer contacting you or never contacting you. A couple of things that I want to point out that I would recommend, and again, we can spend an hour just talking about LinkedIn profile, but the first thing is your picture. Make sure that it's a professional looking picture. I'm always surprised when I see people that got a picture of themselves at a party with a beer in their hand and drunk, or a picture that's blurred and you can hardly tell the features. I mean, again, professional photo. This was a great recommendation that someone told me. So anyone that's not in your network is not going to see anything beyond your summary. So put all your contact in there. So even people out of your network can see your contact information, your portfolio, your LinkedIn, your GitHub, your email, your telephone number. And then the last thing is make sure your URL, change it so that it has, you customize it. I've changed mine to Christina Petrie. So those are just 3 recommendations that I would do to make your LinkedIn profile more professional looking. Next, put your code up on GitHub. A lot of employers want to see, can you use GitHub? Do you know how to use it? It's a great way to showcase some of your work and what you've done and some of your projects, what you're capable of. Your elevator speech, that's your 30-second speech that summarizes who you are, what you do, and why you would be the perfect candidate. So have that ready for employers, have that ready when you're networking, and be able to rattle it off at any point. If you're looking for a job, yeah.
Can you actually demo it? Because I don't have a great elevator. If you have it, can't you really want to?
Yeah, and maybe we can do that at the end,
Okay.
just because I'm not sure. I think I'm gonna, this has got a lot to get through, but yes. The next thing are the staffing agencies. Contact them, interview with them, and sign up with staffing agencies in the area. They're a great resource, and take advantage of them to help you find a job. They often have jobs that are not listed. They can help you get an interview with clients that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise because they have a direct relationship with the client and they have a large network. And so often you will be able to get a job through a staffing agency that you wouldn't otherwise because they're working really for you. I got my first job through a staffing agency. My 2 favorite are the Creative Group and the Creative Circle. There are a ton out there. Research, figure out the ones that are the best fit for you and for the type of work that you're looking for. Resume. Again, often the first point of contact for an employer is going to be your resume. Make sure that it's professional, well done, a good reflection of you. It could be your only chance at a job. If they look at your resume and they put it in the don't want pile, you may never get another chance. So try to put your best foot forward with a really well done resume. Now your first inclination is going to probably, yeah. This is not necessarily, so this, good question. So basically what I did is just, I took an image and I copied and pasted in here. These are not necessarily ones I recommend or not. These are just all examples of sites where you can submit your resume. So Indeed, Glassdoor, Dice, there are so many of them out there. And I'm not saying don't do it, but you have to understand that when you put your resume out on these different sites, it's easy, right? And because it's so easy, a lot of people are doing it. And so it's much easier for your resume to get lost in the shuffle. So a lot of people quite quickly realizing that blasting their email out on these sites and to hundreds of different employers is not necessarily the most efficient way to get an interview, right? Because you're competing with a lot of different people. So, in fact, most people don't get a job through online job boards, career websites, or print advertising. They get it through the hidden job market. So, you're probably wondering, so what is the hidden job market?
Is this your observation or you read the statistics that come with what you just said?
I have statistics which I will talk about in terms of how many people are getting hired through this hidden job market versus getting hired just through jobs that are being advertised. So I can at least substantiate some of that. It is also my experience. So I tried it, and I have to say I have not gotten a single interview or a single response back from any of the resumes that I've just sent out to employers or put on websites. So, not saying don't do it, it's just has not worked for me, and maybe you'll get lucky. Now, I think if you have 3 to 5 years experience, that's very different. So again, we're really talking about a junior web developer that has little or no experience, and they're gonna look and they're going, wow, they don't have anything on here that's really of interest. Boom, you go into the don't want pile. So what is the hidden job market? So basically what it is, it's a term that's used to describe jobs that aren't posted online or advertised. And given the choice, most employers prefer to fill positions without advertising. It saves them a lot of time and money. So according to statistics, 80% of all jobs are never advertised. They are filled through employee recommendations, referrals, recruiters, networking, inside contacts, and word of mouth. So if you tap into this hidden job market, it's going to greatly increase your odds of getting a job. So how do you find out about all of these hush-hush positions so that you can apply to them? Well, the answer is it's really all about connections. I also put that quote in because I love it. The hidden job market isn't hidden, it's just a place that's easy to get to. It isn't easy to get to. It takes time, effort, and tact to get there. And that's actually why most people don't want to go this route. But in the long run, I feel like it's the most or the more effective way to go. So let's talk about connections. Companies don't hire people, people hire people. So submitting your resume online and waiting for a response doesn't work. But often it feels a lot easier than trying to make a human connection. So a lot of people, myself included, get really nervous and embarrassed about reaching out and asking for help. But you'll find that people want to help. You just have to be willing to ask. And having those social connections can really help with your career. The more connected you are, the more likely you are to get work. And your connections and the people you meet through those connections can really help you learn about projects and positions that are maybe not formally announced or advertised. So my advice to you, use those connections because it's who you know, not only what you know, that's going to probably get you that first job. So you're probably asking yourself, well, how do I make those connections? Network, meetups, informational interviews, staffing agencies, referrals, and by practicing your elevator speech and using it. So let's talk about each of those. Building a network and finding work are two sides of the same coin. Networking is the best way to find a job. Number one, people do business primarily with people they know and like. Resumes and cover letters alone are often too impersonal to convince employers to hire you. Number two, job listings tend to draw piles of applicants, which puts you in intense competition with many others. Networking makes you a recommended member of a much smaller pool. Number three, the job you may want may not be advertised at all. Networking leads to information and job leads, often before a formal job description is created or a job announced. So a lot of people, again, are hesitant to network because they don't want to come across as pushy or annoying or self-serving. But networking really isn't about using other people or aggressively promoting yourself. What it really is about building relationships. And networking is just getting to know people. And whether you realize it or not, you're networking every single day. You're networking when you talk to the person in line at the shopping, when you go shopping, or when you go to a PTA meeting, or when you are catching up with a friend or coworker or chatting with a neighbor. And everyone you meet is potentially someone that can help you move forward with your job search. So tapping into the hidden job market may take more planning and more nerve than searching online, but I think in the long run, it's much more effective. And it's just something you should make it a habit, even when you do have a job, because if you make it part of your daily routine, or then you'll continuously be hearing about opportunities and increase your chances of hearing about these opportunities. The next thing is use the Alumni Network. There's the Seattle Central Women in Tech Facebook group. There's the Seattle Central Web Design and Development Facebook group. Connect with alumni on LinkedIn. So when I graduated, the first thing I did was figure out where the places were that I wanted to work. And then I went onto LinkedIn and I figured out who did I know that worked there, whether they were Seattle Central alumni or friends of mine or friends of a friend. You know, it tells you who's connected and how you're connected. And I then contacted these people. So one of the places I wanted to work, or that I was interested in working, was FL, which is an agency. And I saw on there that there was someone who had gotten a degree from Seattle Central, a web development degree, who was working there. So I contacted her. She agreed to meet me for an informational interview, a cup of coffee. She then reached out to me after, asked for my resume. The resume got me a job interview. So did I get the job? No. But there is no way that they would have even looked at my resume if it hadn't been for that connection and having my resume handed to the right person by someone that I reached out to that was a Seattle Central alumni. Also, I had a client recently that needed a logo. What did I do? I reached out to a Seattle Central alumni and asked them to do the job. Meetups, these are a great place to interact with people, to go out and hand out your business card, to meet people, meet other developers, to learn, to share and promote yourself. It can be really awkward attending these meetups, I know, but it is a great way to build contacts. And a lot of them are really informational, yeah.
So I'm new to the meetup world, but I'm aspiring to be a participant.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I want to do a WordPress.
So many of them out there. So you just Google
So
Meetup
is there
WordPress.
anything specific in there, and when you get there, is it like you have to tell them why you're there, and you just sit back and take it all in?
Depends. It depends on the meetup, and a lot of meetups these days will actually have a speaker, a guest speaker. But there's like WordPress meetups, and then there's even a WooCommerce meetup. So it can get really specific. And there's meetups for everything. So if you go to Google Meetup Seattle, and then kind of do web development or web design or online marketing or WordPress, it will pull up a whole. I mean, there's just so many out there. A lot of them usually meet up once a month. Most of them are free, and most of them have a speaker. So, and you see what it is beforehand. And so it's just a great way to meet people, but it's also they're really really interesting and some great information. So you usually learn something from it. It's just tough kind of going on your own and not knowing anyone there. So I often will go with a friend. It just makes it easier if you go with someone.
Is anybody else there alone? Or is it sort of like
There are people there alone.
Okay.
So, and sometimes I've gone alone, and it's just, you can either go there and mingle beforehand, or you can get there right before it starts.
Right.
So, but they're never a waste of time. They're always a great resource. And you just never know who you're going to meet there, right? So, and you're going to meet like-minded people. You're going to meet people who are interested in the same thing as you are, who are doing the same thing as you are. So it sort of really narrows your field of people that you're meeting to people that are on the same wavelength as you are. Yeah.
It helps if you go to the same. Okay. Same places.
That's a really good point. That's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
Informational interviews. So basically, that's when you interview someone whose job you want and discover how they get it. That's really just a great way of researching career options. When you go into an informational interview, you don't want to look at it as a job interview. It's two very different things. But these people can be great resources in terms of talking about a little bit about their job and how they got it and giving you some insight into their job. Sometimes it can result in an opportunity to submit your resume and a job offer. That's always a bonus, but that's not the purpose of these informational interviews. So it's more of a research strategy. Staffing agencies, we talked about a little bit about staffing agencies earlier. Use them as networking tools. Use them to help you get your foot in the door. They can be a really valuable resource, especially when you're starting out. Referrals. So people are a lot more likely to get hired if they were referred than otherwise. And a lot of companies now have referral programs. Studies have showed that 40% of all employees found their first job through referral, and the referrals account for 30 to 50% of hires in the US. So a candidate with a referral is much more likely to have their resume read, land an interview, and ultimately get an offer. In fact, a referral who gets an interview has a 40% better chance of getting hired than other candidates. I like this statistic too. It says it takes 10 referrals to get one hire versus 72 applicants from other sources to get one hire. So if you were a company, where would you invest your time and effort? The numbers are huge, right? So basically, if someone refers you, your chances of getting the job are way higher than they would be otherwise. And again, how do you get a referral? By networking, by letting people know that you're looking for a job. What does that job look like? What are you looking for? And then having them refer you. We talked about the elevator speech earlier. This is where it comes in. Remember that elevator speech that I was talking about and use it to network. Tell people, who are you? What do you do? And why would you be the perfect candidate? Lesson number 3 that I've learned. Experience is everything in this industry. They hire based on what you've done. You can get very far very quickly with no qualifications if you have the necessary skills. Employers want to see what you've done and what you can do and what you're capable of, how and where you got that experience. What I found is less important to them. So if you simply say that you have a web development certificate, that's not enough. They would hire someone that has the experience, but maybe not the web development certificate, over someone that's got a certificate with no experience. Yeah.
When you say experience, do you mean somebody whose resume shows 3 years of experience, or do you mean somebody who walks in with 3-4 websites that they've done recently? Or
I would say all of the above, right? I mean, something, portfolio, either, can you show it in your portfolio what you've done, what you're capable of, GitHub, resume. All they care about is, can you do the job? What are you capable of? And show us that you can do that, versus, hey, I have a straight degree, but you know what, I don't have anything that really shows me that I know that I can do anything with it. Yeah, Stein?
that is a good thing to say. Yes, it seems to me that what you're referring to is that when you get 5 years experience, you actually want to see what competencies which you or on your website.
And I think Tanya and I were just talking too earlier about the whiteboarding. I mean, they may ask you to do some whiteboarding to show what, do you have the experience and skills to do the job?
In your experience of your job, I'm talking about recording, and how often are you asked to do that?
Not very often for the types of jobs I'm looking for. And Tanya can speak to that. Most of the jobs she's looking at, they're asking me to do it all the time. The types of jobs that I'm looking for are different. And so less often. The last interview I went on, they did ask me to, but it's certainly not every, because I don't, again, what I'm looking for is just a different market, and so less likely. So again, it is my impression that the tech industry is less concerned with credentials than some of the other industries, and the most important metric by which that they're going to measure you and by which you're going to be evaluated is what you can do, what what you're capable of, what you can build. So when you apply for that first job, what they're going to want to see is your work. What have you done? And so you want to be prepared to show them projects that you've taken on and examples of your work. So how do you get that work? How do you get experience? Well, it's by being active. My criteria often was, so I did a fair amount of work for free while I was in school initially to build up my resume. And I had 3 criteria. If it gave me experience, contact, or reference, it was a yes. If I had time, obviously. But any one of those 3, it was worth my time doing it. So just start out small, and which is what I did, projects for family and friends, and worry less about the rate that you're going to charge and focus more on getting the experience, building your portfolio up. If you get a little extra pocket money, that's great. And once you become better, you get more confident in what you do, then you can adjust your rates to reflect it. But you have to first get that experience to be able to get the job. There are 3 websites on my portfolio, are sites that I built separate from any school project. And I built them while I was in school, and all 3 were for family and friends, and they are all 3 live sites that are still up and running. So they're all 3 portfolio pieces that I was able to put in my portfolio. Also, when I graduated from Seattle Central, I was approached by the president of the North Central Little League, who is a friend of mine, and she asked if I would redo the North Central Little League website, completely redo it pro bono, and I agreed. First of all, it gave me experience with a new content management system called Bonzi. Second of all, she was a good contact, and third of all, she was a reference. And also, when I went out on job interviews and people were asking me, well, what are you doing? I was able to show them. They did not know it was for free, but I was working. The other thing that I did is I built a fictitious WordPress site using WooCommerce. And when there's a job interview that asks for e-commerce experience, I can apply for it because I have built something. So build these projects, do them for free. Sometimes you have to, but if you don't have that experience and you can't show that you've done it or can do it, then they won't even consider you. Lesson number 4, keep an open mind. Minds are like parachutes, they only function when they open. So it's no secret that there are a lot of options out there, right? There's just a lot of jobs. And sometimes it's better just to keep an open mind and roll with the punches. So if a job comes up that doesn't necessarily exactly match what you're looking for, that doesn't mean that it's not a good experience. And so maybe at that job, you'll meet your next employer or get introduced to someone who can introduce you to your next employer. In most cases, experience is better than no experience. So what do you have to lose by keeping an open mind and trying things out? Some of them are going to work and some won't, but you won't know unless you try. So my goal when I graduated from Seattle Central was to get a job, a full-time job with health benefits. And so I was pretty clear, it was full-time with health benefits. And so I got a contract job with MCG, and then when that ended, I again went out looking for that next job. And at a certain point, it was so all-consuming that I had to take a step back because it was just, I just needed to take a step back and get a different perspective. And as soon as I opened my mind up to other possibility, the freelance job started rolling in. And I have been freelancing ever since. It is keeping me more than busy, and it's actually working out really well. So it's only by keeping an open mind and opening myself up to the possibilities that happened. And if that didn't happen, the opportunity was always there. It's just I was not willing to look at it because I was so focused on what that job had to look like. So I'm going to talk a little bit about freelance, because don't discount freelance. It's a great option, and there's some great benefits to freelancing. The first is the flexibility to choose when and where you work and what you work on. There's a great work-life balance. You're your own boss. You have the freedom to choose your own working hours, your clients, your rate of pay. You can work from anywhere. You have the chance to work on a variety of projects, and there's a higher income potential. So there is definitely a lot going for freelance. The biggest thing is the flexibility. You set your own hours. You can choose your assignments, increase or decrease your hours. You can work around your family life, your social commitments. And for me, I love being in control of my time, location, and the work I do. For me, that's worth its weight in gold. How do I find my clients? They're all referrals. So people refer someone, and I do a really good job, so they refer someone else, and it's yeah.
Are you doing an LLC, or what's your tax structure with that? Because you, like, for example, I'm doing like the same thing, but I'm in a different field right now. This year I have to pay over $3,000 in taxes. So, when you do freelance, you have to. That's tax structure changes a little bit. In any job, any professional service.
Right.
So, what's your experience with that?
Are you in an LLC right now?
Yes.
That is not something I've had to face, because right now I'm working under my own business name, and so and keeping track of obviously all of.
So your tax structure is an individual, you know that.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
They will get tricky.
So that's actually a really good question. It's probably something that is worth looking at for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I have
taxes, tax payments, based on what you're doing. I'm a transition accountant. So.
perfect.
There are a lot of people who are in the position at the end of the year that have taxes, they know what you and how you got paid, that are starting with time.
Okay. So it's easier to pay on a quarterly?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's much better to pay $5,000 for than to find out in January that
Okay. Okay.
Also, your assets, your personal assets are at risk if any use you have any disputes and someone
Okay.
wants to.
Okay.
And an LLC, it's protected.
you can open it
Okay.
You have a bank account specifically attached to it. That's why it has its own bank account, it's its own thing.
Okay. Because I've been keeping. I have.
Yeah, like you got the state certificate plus the city of Seattle permit plus your UDI.
Right. So I know my husband. He works for himself, so he has all of that too. Yeah. Yeah. No, these are great points. And again, it's been 2 or 3 months, and so I've been keeping track of all the receipts or the invoices, and I have for each client. But that's you know.
And are you working in Seattle?
Yeah.
You paying city taxes too?
It's all stuff that's going to have to go through our accountant, but probably something that I want to do sooner rather than later, because I was just going to save it all till the end of the year, but it sounds like that's something I don't want to do. Okay. You too. What's that? Yeah, no, exactly, an accountant, so, yeah. It really depends. It's very varied, and I'll get to a couple of them, but it's all over the map. So one of the reasons I'm busy, I think, is because I am willing to take anything and everything, right? And a lot of people, especially with more experience, aren't. So, for example, one of the recent jobs that I did was for a plastic surgeon. And I took all of the before and after photos and optimized them and changed the background, and for like 324 photos.
Wow.
But I learned a lot about Photoshop in the process, and if she wants to pay me $50 an hour to do that, I'll do it. You know what I mean? So you just don't know what's going to come of that job. Perhaps then she recommends someone else, and it's going to be something more involved, or And from that job, someone that I was talking to said, we were talking about optimizing images, and she had never really heard about optimizing images. And so she said, well, will you write an article for me on my blog and about optimizing images? And I said, sure, I will. So I wrote the article and put it on her blog. And then I went to an interview recently, and they said, well, what are your writing skills like? And so I said, actually, I have this article on the blog, and I can show you. And so it all snowballs. And so if you just stay open to all the possibilities, you just don't know what's going to come of it. Another thing is when I graduated from the Seattle Central, a friend of mine put me in touch with this real estate agent, and he just needed someone to upload his new listings onto his website. Pretty mundane. It's like once a month. About once a month he gets a new listing. Well, a little while later, he had several things on his website that he wanted fixed. So he asked me if I would do it. Sure, no problem. Then like a month later, he wanted to add a new page to his website. No problem. And his website's not responsive. Will you redo my website for me? No problem. So it all started from doing a pretty mundane job, which is uploading a listing onto a real estate agent's site, to getting a job of being able to completely redo the site. So I think sometimes if you open yourself to doing jobs that you just never know where it's going to lead you, I guess, is my point there. Yeah. I do charge per hour. Yeah, Tanya and I were talking about that earlier. I do charge per hour. Yeah, I know that there's pros and cons to charging per hour versus by project, but I have found that often there's scope creep. And so if you charge by the hour, then if there's scope creep, nobody gets upset. Also, a lot of people, Raven, I went to a talk that Raven gave at a WordPress conference, and he was talking about how websites are never finished. They're always work in progress. And so if you charge by project, people kind of expect this finished website for that price. And it's just, so he tends to say, this is how much I charge. What's your budget? Well, this is how much we can do for that. And then when you get more money, we can do this part. And then when you get more money, we can do this part. And so that made a lot of sense to me, whereby you sort of pay by the hour or work within their budget. And if they want more than that, then when there's more money, they can add to that project. So there are definitely downsides to freelancing. You never know when your next paycheck is coming from. You're constantly looking for clients. You have to be a jack of all trades, so you have to do your own marketing and your own sales and project management and bookkeeping. And again, I'm pretty new to it, so you kind of have to learn all this and figure it out. The other downside is there's no insurance benefits. Working alone can get sometimes lonely. You have to be pretty disciplined and motivated. Sometimes it's tempting on an afternoon to sit there and want to watch Netflix. But if you're disciplined and motivated, then that is a good, yeah, Tanya?
Sorry, I was just wondering about LinkedIn and how you structure things so that you actually.
Usually what I do, especially for the bigger projects, is I ask for a deposit in advance. And so recently it was like $500 for a website that I'm going to do, so $500 down and then pay the rest later before we can do the work. So I put together a proposal of what it's going to cost and then $500 down and then the rest later. Some of my clients are people that I know or that a friend of a friend, and so that helps in the sense that there's less chance of them not paying you just because it's either someone you know or. So I have not come across a situation. Again, I'm new to this, but I've not come across a situation where someone has not paid me or I haven't had to hunt them down. Yeah.
And like some tools, website for 210 it's a good sample proposal. It goes to all the designations and it takes 5%.
Does he? Okay.
So whatever the project total is. And again, sometimes if you're sort of doing a little bit, trying to put in the door, if you've got somebody that's like
Or showing people the full job, you're making them post the full job, that's a big thing.
Yeah, so if we do a third of them, third of them.
That's another way to do it, yeah.
Turn over the audio into others. Added in my content type of copyright wants me to.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just something we have to do. It sounds like it's so much.
It has up to this point, and again, it may be more of an issue when I start to get to clients that maybe there's no direct, that link there. So, and then the other thing that's tough is, you may talk to 3 people and then only one of them 3 actually materialize into a job. So there's a lot of people talk to you and you just never hear back from them. So, and then if your office is your home, often it ends up, it's really hard because you feel like you are always working and it's always there, and so you have to sort of separate the two. And then last but not least, I keep a positive attitude. Sometimes it can be really hard. It can be really discouraging to be out there and, have these doors be slammed in your face and you want to work and just no one's willing to give you that opportunity. But I think that if you persevere, eventually anyone and everyone that you talk to, that opportunity comes along, and then it gets you that first opportunity, which then leads to something else, and then it goes from there. So again, just to summarize, be prepared, tap into that hidden job market, get the experience, keep an open mind, just never know where it's going to lead you, and keep a positive attitude. I'm not going to say it's going to get you a job, but I think it will certainly increase the odds of getting a job versus not following those 5 lessons. So thank you very much. Any questions? Yeah.
Are you still looking for a traditional FTE benefits job, or have you decided that freelance is?
That's a really good question. I am still looking. So if an interview comes along or something interesting comes along, and again, I think that I'm just open to all possibilities. I will go and I will interview, and if it sounds great and it's a really good fit, then maybe that's the next step. But ultimately, I think it is. My husband works for himself, and so now with me working for myself, would love to have benefits. One of us have benefits. So that's the main reason full-time work. If it weren't for that, I would say freelance is just such a great way to go. As long as, and I haven't done it long enough to know that if this is sustainable, but certainly for now, it's a great way to get the experience and to be connecting and networking while I'm waiting for that opportunity to come along where it's a great fit for full time. Yeah.
Can you talk a little about the temp job you had? How
Yeah.
did it go? What did you learn? What kind of work did it ask you to do?
Yeah, that was through the creative group, and it was for a company called MCG, Medical Care Guidelines. It was downtown. The work was working on both their internal and external website, and so it was maintaining their external website, which was a Drupal-based site. So I got really lucky. I had not worked with Drupal before, but they gave me the job, and I think once you've worked with enough content management systems are all.
Similar to WordPress.
It is. I mean, you can, the differences are such that you can figure it out, and they sort of gave me a week where they showed me how to do things, and the rest I figured out. And then their internal website was an HTML, CSS site. And so they hired me because there were a lot of changes that need to be made in 2016, and the person who normally does it was leaving, and they were going through a reorg, and while all this was happening, they just wanted to make sure that all that kept moving forward and functioning. The interesting thing that happened is that about a week after starting, my boss left. And so the person that then I reported to was out of San Francisco. And so since he wasn't even in the office, I was able to do most of the work from home. So every once in a while I was going to the office for meetings or so on and so forth. But we did most of our work via Skype or email or phone. and it worked out really well. And then it was supposed to be a 3-month contract, it extended to 6. And then finally, there just was not enough work with, once everything was in place, unfortunately, to keep me on. So the contract ended. But, yeah, it really was. I can put Drupal on my website now, on my resume now, and
Did they contest you for one for that?
they did not. They did not for that because it was sort of just maintaining their website. And I just kind of got, again, it was just right place, right time. They needed someone immediately. Can you do it? Yes, I can. All right. Can you start tomorrow? Yes, I can. Great. Let's just do it. So they don't all work that way, but and I think maybe because it was more short term, they were less worried about finding the right person. For the long term, just someone that sort of get in there and just do it. So, and I've been on other interviews through the creative group, but none of them actually led to an actual job. So, but I keep going on them, and I think eventually something's going to happen. So, yeah, I know.
Okay, so I'm a web design student, and so I feel insecure about that. Based on Tanya's recommendation, LinkedIn says I'm front end developer, and I feel a little bit of imposter on that. So you are a web developer, that's the good thing. Do you find like the stuff that you did in your tech role, for example, or the jobs that you directly? I'm glad I had that second and third PhD class and JavaScript class. Or is it sort of like, no, you're gonna have to figure out what they want you to do anyway, and it's fine. Or should I press on to press on the classes?
For that job, there was definitely times when having that extra technical skills were helpful, especially for the internal website. But I would say for that particular job, it's something that you wouldn't be able to pick up and do. It was not coding apps or
Right, I don't want to.
and in which case, even I don't feel I would necessarily be qualified for that, but it's also not what I want to do. So I have to sort of stay very clear as to what it is I want to do. And but I think there's more opportunities. The more technical you are, the more opportunities there are. I guess that would be my only advice is the more technical you are, the more opportunities there are. That's not to say that there's not opportunities for people who don't have that technical skills, but if you are really good at JavaScript and jQuery, then you're going to have a much easier, and that's what you want to do. Then you're going to have a much easier time than someone who maybe has less technical skills. Yeah, you got a question?
So one thing that I would do is read on the job description is I keep doing this all the time. That's really a wish list. And they
Yeah.
want to have someone about this.
It's the time to do it.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily needed. Most writing developers, HTML, CSS, and
That's where I am.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because
I would
yeah.
I would come to that a little bit. One of the
junior developers, they're a lot more tolerant. So once you're like a mid-level or senior developer, they want you to JavaScript. With junior developers, if you know enough JavaScript to be able to go in and sort out what's already there or find something, typically that's enough to get things to do. So this guy's I did one of my things that's the smarter self and
yeah, and that's but I guess immediately trying to level up. But
are you applying for junior jobs?
no, I was.
So yeah, the junior jobs, so the other thing that I would look at is so the junior jobs that I'm talking about are 16. You got to pay like $7,000. Sounds right. 40 to 60. You can get away, but you're gonna have to be by a year. Yeah, that's awesome.
The tourist restaurant for initial products. But it's his least taking step.
Don't be afraid of JavaScript.
It's really
Well, I got the first one, Scan was great. Scan on the moment, taking odd.
So, looking at all jobs, and I guess suggestion of CSS jobs, many other technologies that are popping up, do you know that?
That's a really good question. I guess it depends on where your interests lie. There is a whole world out there of jobs that I'm not applying for because that's what I know that's not what I want to do. I want to sort of, but I think those are the ones that you, as a front-end developer, they're really looking at. If you're working with websites, a lot of them want SEO, web analytics knowledge. So that's another big one that I'm finding. What's that? It's not, but they want you, that's sort of, that's something that's out there that most, if you're going to be maintaining their website, it's going to be a webmaster. It's one of the things that they are looking for or want. But otherwise, Donnie, I would say the ones you mentioned, if you're working with, WordPress and you want to have that PHP, just because that sort of gives you a lot more flexibility. But you took the WordPress class and you know enough to go in there and yeah. It's tough because if you don't keep using those skills, it's amazing how quickly you lose them. And so they talk about Petrie, where you're broad in knowledge, but you sort of kind of narrow in on a specific specialty or become an expert in one area. So you know a little bit about a lot, but you're an expert in one area. You almost have to do that because it's so hard to be an expert in everything. And that's sort of what I struggled with when I started going out for a job. It's like, well, they want this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and that makes me a front-end developer and a web, back-end developer and full stack and app developer all in one. And it's like, well, that's asking for a lot. And I think what you said too is they will throw a lot out there, and what they're asking for is often almost impossible to find in one person. I went for a job interview recently, and it was for someone to, again, sort of maintain their website, and then they were asking me, well, can you build apps? And then they were having me whiteboard. It's like, wait a minute, you want me to maintain your website and build apps for you? And that's almost like two different people that you're asking me, two people in one. And so they're going to ask, and you can either, because ideally that's what they would love, but it's sort of a programmer or front end that they were looking for, and so I was like, well, what are you looking for? Two different people or one person that can do it all? If that's the case, good luck. So
You never want to pay.
yes, yeah, exactly. So
I think our time is up because we get this too, so otherwise we can keep them going an hour.
yeah,
Thank you very much for your time.
yeah. Yeah, I can give you, so probably the best way to do that would be, I made the link to my slides public.